Hello, mate. You all right?
Yes, I'm right, thank you, Johnny. You?
Yeah, I'm okay. You look bloody red. What's going on there?
Don't know what's going on there, my friend. Maybe it's the linen covers.
Yeah, either linen covers or you've been trying to get some sun. Well, that's a laugh living in this country. We've had a couple of days. Or you've got bloody blood pressure, but hopefully not. You're only what, 44, going to be 45, a little bit older than me. I I always like your birthdays, mate, because you always make me feel younger, being 1 year younger than you.
Well,
That's
I can assure you it's not the blood pressure, Johnny. Just
no.
it's the colour of this linen
Yes,
reflecting off my face.
I can see it actually in front of me, so I think you're right. Well, we've done your health kind of status, and it seems all okay. You passed the MOT as far as I can see at the moment. How
Thank
you
you,
been?
Johnny.
How you been generally? What's been happening in your world?
Yeah, just busy, busy, busy. Enjoyed the tennis last week.
Hmm.
That was good fun, and the week before that. But apart from that, Johnny, life is just busy.
Yeah, living on the edge, living the dream in lockdown London, lockdown UK. So apart from work and maybe the odd Netflix series, I don't know about you, but I'm thrashing my way through the Vikings, being the last ever series of one of my favorite kind of. Well, it's not on Netflix, it's on Amazon actually. Series that I've like of all time. So I don't know if you caught the last bits of that.
Yeah, I've been watching the Vikings. I've been watching Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, which is quite dark actually. Watching The
Green.
Crown. Watching so many. I'm watching so many dramas actually, Johnny. I think I've got about 100 different series that I follow from time to time. Not all at the same time, but I'd probably say I've got about 10 or 12 at the moment where we have a schedule where different nights we watch different episodes. Love The Mandalorian as well on Disney Channel. That is pretty good. The Mandalorian.
So whilst I watch the Vikings, you watch Sabrina the Witch. I'm starting to worry about you, mate. I've known you for
No, no,
23 years.
no. Johnny. This this episode was introduced to me
31
by
years. Yeah.
this series was introduced to me by a couple of friends that you would know, and I'm not going to mention their names on here. It's not fair,
No.
but this series, I thought, oh yeah, is it going to be typical, nonsense? And actually, it's quite dark. It plays a lot on some very dark messages. It's not what you think it is. It's like anything. It's like when they brought out Batman, and they redid a lot of these kind of movies. They did it gritty and dark. This is quite dark, but I love the Vikings as well. Vikings is fantastic. Watching all of that, plus a couple of my other kind of science fiction dramas that I enjoy as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, apart from, you know, working or apart from um, family stuff and it's TV series, isn't it, to get you through this lockdown, considering it's winter. But we are getting our first
And a bit of
kind of
gardening.
yeah, we're getting our
I've,
first kind of signs of spring, which makes me feel. And the light's getting a bit, when you look in the evenings, it's getting a bit lighter. And I don't know about you, I'm not a winter person. I don't mind 3 or 4 weeks of snow, but the winter in this country drags on forever. And just that feeling that we're coming out of that darkness tunnel of winter into the first throngs of spring, it's just a game changer. It just puts a step in you, kind of.
yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Johnny. I'm at the moment Monday to Friday. I am flat out with my business, flat out, and I need a bit of downtime. And I love it when it's a bit sunny and got those crisp winter evenings or afternoons, especially with the blue sky and the sunshine. Now that I've seen my daffodils coming out, I can get in the garden. I've got things I need to do, rockeries to build, fences to take down. God, the life of a middle-aged man. We wouldn't have been saying that 20 years ago.
No,
But I've got
it's
loads of stuff to do, building work, refurbishment work. So I'm going to be busy, busy, busy. But you know what I really miss? A night out to the casino, a night out to the bars uptown when you and I, hit and paint the town red and go to those casinos. Hopefully, mate, hopefully we'll be able to do that soon, because I tell you what, your birthday's coming up. And as I was saying to my wife earlier, you know what? That would be 2 birthdays Johnny's had in lockdown, whereas normally we would have been dressed up in Mayfair or somewhere, in the bars, in a casino, and that's 2 birthdays where, well, apart from watching Vikings, that's about as good as it gets. And of course, a virtual meeting, you and I, and a virtual brandy or something, but it's not the same, is it?
No, I mean, living life on the edge with your daffodils and your garden, yeah, it's all well and good, but we're not ready for our pipe and slippers. But I agree with you. I missed us going out. We used to go at least twice a month, once locally or once up in town, and just that kind of feeling of just us being us going out. Not someone who's in work or doing your business, or husband or father or whatever it might be. Just 2 guys who've known each other forever, going out, just enjoying a night out as we've done before. But that were 2 birthdays. My God, that's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't
Normally we
get
would
that
have gone.
back.
Yeah. Normally we would have gone to 6 or 7 different places,
Mm.
had quite a few, drinks, enjoyed ourselves, gone to a casino, possibly. Like, well, we possibly, I know that would have been a yes because we're a member of 1 or 2 of them. And we would have just had a really good night out. And you know what? It's great to let your hair down,
Yeah.
to be able to enjoy yourself and relax. And then you've got your time with your family, and then you've got the chores, as we all have in life, doing things that we're doing around the house. And it was a balanced life. But certainly for the last year or so, it hasn't felt balanced at all. It's been all work and no play. So I'm looking forward to the play. And I'm sure many people listening to this are thinking, yeah, that's me as well. I want to get out there and play. So hopefully we will all be painting that town red sooner than later.
Do you think we will? The old Boris is saying 21st of June, it'll resemble normality. What's your feeling on it?
I think it will come because at the end of the day, vaccinations are happening. I don't want to get into the politics of whether we agree or disagree with vaccinations, or whether we think there are new strains like the Nigerian strain and various things that they're saying will
Brazilian
not be
strains,
able.
US strains. Seems like every country has its own strain.
Exactly, that might be going to knock the vaccine out of being able to do its job.
Mm.
But we all have to stay positive, and we all got to hope that by June we should be in a better place. Because I tell you what, Johnny, after April, they are talking about vaccinating all people,
Mm.
you, me, anyone under the age of 50. So because we're that side of 40, we're next. Vaccinations will start to happen for the 40s after April. So, you got to look at that as being positive. That hopefully by the time we get round to winter, most people are going to be vaccinated. And that's got to create a barrier, hasn't it? It's got to do something.
Well, they've done a bloody good job of the vaccination program. I think the Germans,
Best in the world.
yeah, the Germans were even begrudgingly praising the old Brits with what they've done in terms of the rollout. So they deserve massive kudos for that, despite the shocking figures of death and stuff. Um, but but I I'd love to think that everything will be back to normal come June. There is a side of me that does worry that they'll do a fantastic job with the vaccines, but nature's nature, and whether a variant or two finds its way. And Bill Gates, I mean, Bill Gates and his brain and what he's done in terms of Microsoft and everything else seems to know a thing or two. He predicts that we'll need a 3rd vaccine by autumn, apparently. So that's a bit of a bummer if that's the case. They can't do that,
Well,
surely. The whole population to be vaccinated again.
yeah. You see, the issue I have is you're not going to feel comfortable until you know that everyone's been vaccinated, or as more likely, and I say this to everyone I talk to, we can't control this. Nature will end it, like nature's ended every other virus, plague that man has known. Right? At the end of the day, the bubonic plague lasted, what, 3 years? You know, the Spanish flu was a couple of years. At the end of the day, it will burn out, but it will be when nature decides. And what makes, you know, you wonder and what makes you think about this stuff is that with all the technology and all the money that we have and all the effort that's gone into the vaccine, it's still kind of carrying on as long as some of those other viruses did 100 years ago. And that's without all the technology and money and vaccination. So I still believe that nature will end it when nature ends it. But as Nick Ferrari said on LBC, would you want to stand in a bar if you're not sure whether people have had a vaccination or not? You know, will a Saturday or Friday night be the same again? Or, you know, the Thursday night, which was always, you know, the new Saturday night? Because I tell you what, Johnny, I don't know if I want to go up into London, go to a bar and, you know, look at the bars we got. There's some fantastic bars, but many of them are kind of underground in cellars and, you know, old wine cellars, etc., where the ceilings are low, and it's all a great atmosphere, but you're very, very close together with people. Now it's going to make me feel very uncomfortable. And what Nick Ferrari was saying is maybe will it be that we're going to have these passports where you can go in a bar if you show your certificate to say you've been vaccinated? Because I don't want to stand in, because I tell you what's going to happen, and I tell and this will be you and me, because for all those listeners that have listened to us before, you know, Johnny and I, we're easy going. But if I'm walking into a bar and I start seeing a load of people coughing and spluttering everywhere, I'm going to be the first to run out of that place.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think you made a great point there, mate, in terms of the vaccinations. I've heard this, I've seen this before, talking about it, you know, whether you'll have things like vaccination passports. And I think for nightclubs and theaters and bars and stuff where it is confined and it is indoors, I mean, okay, in summer you can be outside in the beer garden, but let's face it, with British weather and rain and stuff, we don't get too many days like that. I think it'll be a situation maybe that a bit like, you know, clubs and bars in certain parts of London, in Kensington even, they asked for ID proof to come into the establishment,
Yes, they
regardless.
do. Yeah.
And I think what will happen then is you'll have to prove somehow that you've had the vaccination, maybe, but that's a bit difficult, right? Because it's not like a driving license. So unless people proactively before a night out or go out of their way to get some kind of documented proof that they've had the vaccine.
Well, you do get it when you go for your vaccine. They give you a stamped document,
But how many
which
people
people
keep that?
walk away with.
How many people will keep that?
I'm sure people will, but I don't think that will be the evidence. I think it will end up being electronic because let's be honest, we're in a modern world of technology. You and I have been on Clubhouse. That's the future. I do a lot of my business via Microsoft Teams, same as you. I don't need to get in a car and drive around the North Circular to go and see someone today. So why would we need to show a piece of paper? When we go into a bar or a club in Kensington or Chelsea, and they ask for ID because they need to know who's coming into their establishment, which is the way forward. And we show the ID, they put our details into the system, and up we pop, and we are who we are. And, you know, for all of you listeners out there, you're thinking, well, what's all that about? Well, you know what? London particularly, and I've not seen it elsewhere in the country, and we've been to a lot of different places all over the country, but it reminds me of America. It's this kind of approach where everybody needs to know who everyone is, and for probably, you know, security reasons and everything else. But that's what will happen with the vaccination. as soon as you've had that vaccination, you're going to go on the computer as being you've been vaccinated. So I reckon that when you turn up at these places, they'll just type in your name and it will come up saying, tick, he's been vaccinated. But then I'm thinking, George Orwell,
GDPR data.
yep. And I'm thinking,
Data confidentiality. I don't know if that's going to be possible, mate.
I don't know, mate. I'm just thinking George Orwell, 1984. I could see me walking in and you being carried off by the men in the white coats. No, I've had my vaccine. Honestly, I have. No, we haven't got the documentation, Johnny. It would
Yeah,
be like something out of Judge Dredd. You'd be carried off and I'd be like running after you.
it's a great thought, and I can see what you're saying, and I can see it happening. I don't see it with nightclubs and bars because they're just prehistoric. You go into most bars and clubs, they just don't
Well,
have what it takes to do that. The one, they won't have the funds, and two, there's data issues, confidentiality issues.
of course. But
Unless there's some way around it, I don't know. They also say use disinfectant. I read that's why you found scenes like in China where they were spraying everything. They say it does work, so I don't know whether they'll do that. But then you think about, do you want to breathe all that disinfectant? Is, you don't get COVID, but you get something else.
yeah, no, I totally get it. Well, maybe what they'll do is, with the ID chips that you've got in your passports, that carries all the code about you, maybe they'll update things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you go through passport control and they scan the chip, but it also has on there, you've had a vaccine.
That's a great point.
I,
I can see that.
I'm sure there are some very
Yeah.
clever people out there that know how to code these things, but then you've got lots of cynical people, and we all know them, that will be going, there's too much data in the world about everyone.
Well, data's the new oil, mate. It's as
It
simple as
is,
that.
but
Data rules everything. Um,
it's
we'll
true.
see
And we've
what
had
goes
many
on.
a Clubhouse chat about that. Maybe
Yeah.
there's just too much data, Johnny. Too
Well,
much data.
speaking about that Clubhouse, hence the bit of a delay on our podcast. Clubhouse, for all those who may not know what it is right now, because it's still very early, is a app from Silicon Valley. It's a social media audio app, devised for the iPhone, iPad, coming to Android, I think, is sometime in March. No video, no messaging, just simply talking via your phone or iPad in rooms with moderators. You have an audience of people, lots of different rooms, uh, areas of interest. You scroll down, etc. You then navigate your way of what resonates, what doesn't. And I, as you know, what I've spoken about this, I think we've spoken about this subject before, social media, and I've said how narcissistic it can be and how I don't really resonate with it. This one is the exception to the rule. Yes, there are narcissistic tendencies. Yes, there are people there that are just locuses in terms of moving from one social media platform as influencers, going on to the latest one, and they hide behind concepts of value and authenticity. And by the way, everyone, value and authenticity are the words of 2021 for all those doing business and sales. It's all about providing value and authenticity. That suggests that we weren't authentic to begin with. We're only authentic now. So question mark on that. But as we all know, anything that America does, when America catches, sneezes, we catch a cold. We seem to follow a lot of their trends. But so this platform is very, very interesting, very informative, very educational. You can talk to all kinds of people, but also, yes, there are people out there just simply out for themselves, and they're doing glorified sales funnels. Like with everything, it has its pros and cons, but it's bloody addictive. I've been on it quite a lot. Second to LinkedIn, it has been my mainstay, for business, for other things, recreational, and we've discussed all kinds of topics, even in a couple of rooms that we've been in. But I know you haven't been on it so much as I have, but yeah, I've been addicted to this one, mate. Even though my previous thoughts on social media were, let's put it our best, lukewarm.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Uh, I like Clubhouse. I don't mind it. I find it very, very interesting in terms of some of the topics that we've chatted about. Certainly about, capitalism, and do we think the world is gone too far from a capitalist point of view, and are there people out there just making the money out of people that are suffering, like in the pandemic? And it's been very, very interesting, because I've certainly listened to a few people and spoken to a few people on Clubhouse where I thought, you know what, that guy, wow, you know, his thoughts, how articulate he was, um, you know, women as well, you know, sharing views. And some people have been sharing views from very, very, you know, influential positions as well in society, and in terms of, you know, what they do as a job as well. So sometimes it's been really interesting to kind of hear different views and different approaches, because let's be honest, we all learn. I love learning. You're never too old to learn. So when people share best practices and share good ideas, I think it's invaluable. What I don't like is when I've been on a couple of those shows where someone's saying, I'm great, I'm wonderful, I'm the best since sliced bread, and if you listen to me, you'll be a millionaire. And you've got people going, oh, wow, wow, you're so amazing, let's be like you. And it reminds me of like something out of The Office.
Well, what it reminds me
Bit
of,
like that, really. You know,
well,
the office drama.
no, I think what it does when you go in these rooms and these so-called influencers, you know, it's now not six figures.
Influencers, the new word.
Yeah, well,
Well, it's been around
been
for a
around for
while.
a while, but it's not six figures. It's not seven figures. Not even eight figures. It's nine figures. It just goes up and up. And I think what it is with some of these people, yes, you get some real gems, and you get to talk to people that would take forever, if not ever possible to do so. But there are rooms with people on there that are basically taking advantage, in the sense that, let's face it, a lot of people go in these rooms because they think the magic dust, the massive magic formula will sprinkle over them in terms of the secrets of their source of what made them successful. And I'm sorry to say, but that's just a load of bullshit. Because at the end of the day, they are using that formula on people that come into the room, and they fully know deep down, you know, 1,000 people in the room, you know, don't give me that 999 people in that room by listening to them will suddenly be more successful. No. Will they pick up some pieces of, you know, advice and some tricks and tips here and there? Yes, but they're not going to reveal their secret of their source, because sometimes there is no secret of their source. Because, you know, I went in a room and they were talking about, you know, am I self-made if you come from nothing, or was it just good timing? And I think in the end, the consensus was good timing. They said, for example, if Bill Gates was 2 years older, he would never have been able to form Microsoft, or
Yeah,
have got,
interesting.
yeah, or had the use of a supercomputer or anything like that. So I think a lot of it is good timing, but it's a fascinating app. It's the modern day form of radio, in my opinion. I actually haven't been listening to radio at all since Clubhouse. Clubhouse, I'm either on it, moderating rooms, I'm either heavily involved in a lot of the rooms, or I just listen to it as background. And I've stopped using the radio. I really have, because when I did turn the radio on, it was just so bloody boring.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when you're
Or
looking at interactive kind of thing like Clubhouse, where you know, it's real time kind of engagement. There's no filter, there's no producer, researcher. You're not waiting on the phone for a few kind of a 1 minute kind of segment. It's quite fluid, and that's the beauty of it.
yeah, and also, you know, you and I have spoken on LBC a couple of times, and
Yeah.
if you've got something interesting and they want to talk to you and listen to you, that moderator before you speak has already made a decision that you are next. The good thing about Clubhouse is it doesn't matter who's on the app, whether they are somebody of influence or not. Everybody can step up to the stage. Everyone can have a say. You can't be
Within reason.
silenced. You can't have the magic button where you press it like they do on radio stations and talk over you. And when they've had enough, they just switch you off. At the end of the day, it's a platform to be able to voice your opinion in a way that you feel safe to do so.
Yeah, it's about setting up your own kind of tribes and communities. Obviously, in the big rooms, there isn't that kind of equilibrium of people being able to all have their say. No, it's the big boys at the top of the table. For example, Elon Musk was on there, Mark Zuckerberg was on there, and when they were on there, they broke the server because there was so many people in a room. I think it has a maximum limit of 5,000 in a room, and the servers just simply couldn't cope. So in those type of rooms you don't get that kind of feeling, but you can create your own rooms, you can create your own kind of tribe and community. And like you
Did you
said,
go to one of those rooms then?
I didn't actually, mate. I couldn't get in.
I wouldn't mind listening to what Elon Musk has to
Yeah,
say
I couldn't.
about life.
No, I couldn't. One, I think the time I was knackered because obviously it was in the US time zone, California to us. And two, um, every time you tried to get into the room, it kept kind of crashing out. So, but it is fascinating to have those kind of figures on there. And I think they smell or sense something with it. One person said John Lee, a guy called John Lee, he's supposed to be Forbes 500 guy. He's quite an influencer and he's got about 3 million followers on Instagram or something. He was saying that
Wow.
this for him feels like Instagram in the early days because Instagram's got 100 million users, I think something like that, if not more, whereas Clubhouse has only got 5 million in total, and the majority of which are from the US. It's only become slightly big in Germany and coming, and the UK market's picking up, but it's still so very, very early. But it's fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating to see, and you have to just find your way. And it's not going to be for everyone. And sometimes you might get a bad experience, and you feel, oh, this is just a pile of rubbish, and it's just self-praising kind of society of people just up themselves. But I do like it. I do like it. Faults and all, for me, it's good. It's good. Before we finish, do you think after this whole pandemic, if we're not in lockdown 20, do you think things are going to drastically change or have changed? Or do you think it's more of an aberration and it'll be business as usual in 6 months' time?
Well, things have changed and they will change. You know what kind of environment that I work in, and I'm seeing those changes all the time in the financial business. So in the financial industry, for sure, 100% it's changed. And for me personally, um, I want to do things differently. I don't want to be running around like 100 miles per hour,
Mm.
um, stuck in traffic, doing this, doing that, when I can use modern technology that's been created to allow us to do a Zoom or
Yeah.
Microsoft Teams and etc. etc. Now people listening to this would laugh. My nephew would be like, what are you talking about? Microsoft Teams, all of this kind of technology has been around for some time. I could do a Facebook with you on my iPhone. But the point is, in some of these industries, it's been heavily about face-to-face client contact, etc., etc. Well, a lot of my clients are quite happy to just say, well, we're fine with doing it this way, but maybe when I've got a big seminar or something that I need to go to, then there's nothing better than doing a face-to-face contact. Certainly, I think that retail buildings or commercial premises will start to become redundant, which is
Yeah.
interesting because, you look at the Canary Wharfs and the City of London. Yes, you need the big headquarters and the big spaces, but I'm sure many a corporate company has started to look at how much money they can cut by not paying huge amounts of rent because they've realized that their people can adapt quite well to technology and adapt quite well to working from home. Let's not forget, if we talk about the great author Arthur C. Clarke, he spoke about this stuff in the 60s, that man will be able to communicate from anywhere in the world and do business anywhere in the world. And he spoke about that world. And he said that in the future, people won't be traveling. It will all be done remote. Well, we've seen that. We've seen a heavy play on the transport system where they haven't got that money coming in because people haven't been traveling on the tube and the train, etc. You haven't got the hubs going on in the cities because, you know, Canary Wharf is probably like a ghost town. And what will start to happen, and what you and I have always been talking about, is that towns and cities will change. They will become more of a social hub. They will become the restaurants, the bars, the clubs, the theatres. And that's what I want to see more of. So lots of commercial premises will change. I mean, look, how many skyscrapers have we been in where it's all about the bar and the restaurant on the 20th or 30th floor or 70th floor? We used to laugh saying, well, that was always going on in New York. That was always going on in Chicago, because a lot of these sort of commercial premises realized that, you know, business is changing. And how are we going to make money and bring in revenue? Well, we might as well have a really fancy bar and restaurant and club, you know, in this skyscraper. So I personally think that life will change. People will view their life. They will look at it differently. They will slow down. City centres will become more social, which I totally agree. Who wants a city centre or a town centre if it's all, you know, abandoned and boarded up? And because that will just bring a different feel to the streets. It will make people feel unsafe. So, you know, those sort of hubs will change, and I think for the better. They should become more social. But at the same time, Johnny, from a health and well-being point of view, I think it's made people respect and feel their family more and their friends more, because, you know, there's been so much mental health and other health issues that have come out of this pandemic. And certainly for me, I think it's brought back a sense of community, because I talk a lot more with my neighbours. I talk with a lot more with the people in my street. And I think, you know, we kind of miss that kind of sense of community that my grandparents had when they were growing up, where everyone knew everyone. And I think, you know, that's one good thing that's come out of all of this, is that sense of community.
Fantastic points, mate. I'm quite impressed there by you. It's good for you there. That's good stuff.
Well, I
Um,
try.
um, I think I agree with a lot what you say. I think the pandemic has changed the world. Um, I don't think that genie can be put back in the bottle. I think it's shown that companies can trust their staff to work remotely, even though beforehand they were dubious, because let's face it, we had a system of work which was based on an old Victorian model of clock in, clock out. Must have lunch at this time, must come in at that time, must leave at the other time. And I think a lot of companies now have realized actually we can trust our staff. In fact, there was a study saying that people work 10 hours more a week from working from home. You'll get people, and I've seen articles about it. I think Barclays Bank and JP Morgan boss and Goldman Sachs, they were saying, oh, it affects productivity. You won't have the ability to, you know, the culture is affected because you won't have the mentoring and stuff like that. And we see this more as an aberration, and we'll be expecting our staff to come back in, whereas Lloyd's says the opposite. HSBC are going to cut their offices by 40%, I heard, over a period of years. Microsoft, Facebook and Twitter and stuff and Google have all said, you know, remote working is here to stay permanently. They're going to do that over the next few years. And I agree with you, P&L, one of the biggest costs is office space. So I think, and I was discussing this in Clubhouse actually, about where will the future of work and what the pandemic will, what will the pandemic mean? And basically it was, the consensus was that a lot of city centers of these skyscrapers and stuff, yes, there will be some works companies that will go back to their headquarters and fill those skyscrapers and your Canary Wharfs all up. But I think a lot of this is going to fundamentally change. I think maybe there's an opportunity to convert those office spaces into flats for homes and stuff like that, because we've known about housing crisis in this country for a very, very long time. I think as well, they were saying in New York that since the pandemic, there's been an explosion in house prices of the suburbs, and I think that's a game changer. I
Yeah.
don't think that's going to go away. I think we're going to be a little bit scarred because let's face it, pandemics are going to come again. I think forget about wars. I think they're 20th century. I think it's more biological and climate. That's what we're going to be facing in the future. And I think people will be scarred in the sense of space is a premium, outdoor space is a premium, being next to a park, having a garden, all of these things, which let's face it, if you're in the central London and the prices that there is in central London, you're lucky to get to live in a garage or a shed, let alone a one bedroom flat or something at the very most for the ordinary folk. So I think it's made people reassess, and I think that movement away to the suburbs, I don't think that's going to retreat. I think central London will always have its pulling power because of the kind of infrastructure and stuff out that there is. I think retail's fundamentally going to change. I don't think that's permanently damaged. I think hospitality has been permanently damaged. Flying, I think that will pick up eventually. I think because people will,
Yeah.
want to definitely go abroad, but that's to an extent also been damaged. So you just
And of course, Johnny, lots of people live all over the world with families all over the world. If I
yeah
take my own wife's situation,
yeah.
of course, we will try and get on that plane and get back to Spain. Not because we just want a holiday, because we want to see our family.
That's the one thing. People, all this technology is great, and look, we're just convert. You and I are speaking as two mates with our microphone, laptops, Zoom, you name it, and that's an amazing thing. And Clubhouse does that as well. You can speak to anyone in the world. It's just you have to pinch yourself, and it's incredible. But it doesn't replace that face-to-face contact. People need. We're social animals. We need to feel touch, be in the presence of someone. It's just not the same. We've had virtual drinks, we've had virtual this, we've had a laugh, but it's not the same, is it, mate? So I just hope, and I agree with you, that London prior to the pandemic, and I can only speak about London, living in London as you, most of our lives, we've traveled a lot of places, but it was becoming quite a harsh place. People didn't have any time for each other. In the business, you'd be lucky to get 1 minute. I used to put an egg timer and see how long I would last in my line of business on a phone call.
So you're saying it's like a press the reset button.
Well, I don't know about the press reset button, but I've noticed, for example, even when I've walked with my kids where I live, people smile and they say hello. And at first, because you live in London, you think you're a bit taken back because we're not used to it, right? We're used to just all kind of being on the train, not talking, not speaking, and then
Yes.
one did you think they're a bit weird. And I hope that sense of what you just said, that community comes back like a roaring lion, because I think this kind of sense of isolation and the fact that everybody was so separated and so insulated in their bubbles of the world, I hope that the pandemic has all taught us that life is fleeting and we have a little speck of time on this planet, and let's just enjoy the relationships that we have with all together. And I hope so, but we'll see.
I totally agree. Look, when I go down to Devon and Dorset and Cornwall places, I get that real sense of community. Everyone's talking to everyone. When I go abroad, I talk to people. When I'm in Alicante and places, I pop into the local shops and I'm chatting away to people. Then I could walk down the street in London, I could ask for some help, and people just walk past me. But I've noticed that change.
Mm,
And that sense of community um, is is very, very important.
yeah.
Human beings were never supposed to be on their own and isolated. But when we talk about that speck, Johnny, that tiny speck, I completely agree with you. It's made people re-evaluate
Mm.
everything in life. At the
Made
end
me
of the day,
reevaluate, to be
yeah,
honest, and
yeah,
you as well.
exactly. And I've made some changes for the better. But when we look at the history of this planet, our great, great planet, if The planet was a 24-hour clock, so they say. Human beings, we've only been on it about a second.
Yes.
And I don't know who I heard that from. It might have been one of those great phrases used by Brian Cox. It might have been him. I can't remember if it was somebody
Google,
else.
mate. It's called Google.
Yeah, but you know, I will never forget that. We have been on this planet, for all of you listening out there, just think about that. If this planet was a 24-hour clock, we've been on it about a second.
Well, that's just, that's just mind blowing. I can tell you that. Well, if we've been on a second, this podcast means we've been on an eternity. So I think that's a nice place to stop. And I've enjoyed it, mate. And I hope maybe next time, prior to our next podcast, we'll actually be allowed out to maybe meet up for a walk, because it doesn't get any more exciting than that. A walk in the park, socially distant.
And on that note, everyone, good night.
Good night.